well, Prince Charles, because he was only Prince
Prince
then.
at the time, yeah.
And I said, I think that you should make a remake of the Goon Show. And he laughed and said, well, yeah, well, that's a good idea. I don't think, he said, but
This Prince thing isn't going anywhere. You should probably do comedy.
yeah,
instead.
do comedy.
Welcome. Hello. To Tea is Time, a podcast where we explore the world of tea and everything that comes with it. I'm your host and resident tea enthusiast, Guillaume Morris, and I'm excited to take this journey with you. Tea is not only a beverage, but it's also, I would consider it a way of finding contentment and harmony in your everyday life. From the moment that tea is picked to the time that it is brewed in your favorite pot or teacup, there's a rich history and culture that surrounds it. And we will be diving into many of these aspects as the origins and the tea plant and the latest trends. But it's not only about the tea, it's also about the people. And we'll be hearing a lot of guests from all walks of life telling us their stories over a cup of tea. So sit back, relax, and whether you are a seasoned tea drinker or a newcomer to the world of tea, there is something for everyone on Tea is Time. And considering that the coronation of King Charles III is just around the corner, we wanted to touch upon the British tradition in tea. And with me to do so, I have April Spendrup.
A true Brit.
A true Brit. A true Brit. And an interior designer, or you have many vocations, but for the past 20 years, you've been an interior designer. And also Sebastian Spendrup, musician and composer.
That's right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. It's so exciting. I always want to start off by drinking a cup of tea. Sounds good?
It's very British.
Wonderful.
And
Very British.
this particular tea, my investigation has led me to believe that this is King Charles's favorite tea. It is a Darjeeling First Flush from India. And what is particular with this tea? Let's try it out first. Cheers.
Cheers.
At last.
So what is particularly with this tea? Darjeeling, as you may or may not know, is a province in India, just below the Himalayas, mountainous area, very mountainous area. And we call the teas there the champagne of teas. It's a very, very, it's a big event every year for the first flush, the first teas that have been plucked after the winter season. And I would say that this is the only, and this is somewhere between March, April, somewhere there that the picking starts. And this is the only time where we as tea nerds get to feel like cool stockbrokers because it's a very limited quantity, and we're just texting each other and calling each other, and I'll buy this and I'll buy 5 kilos of that and 10 kilos of this and for what price and da da da. So it's a very, very hectic period.
May I just come in there?
Yeah, of course.
Before when your father was here,
Yeah.
if you wrote down on the list, you could
Exactly.
get only a very small quantity, but you got first flush.
We still have that list.
Still have the list.
So your name is somewhere there. We have a pre-order list for this tea because since it was such a limited quantity, since it is such a limited quantity, and specifically this year has been a drought season in that area of India, and the yield has not been as good as they expected. So the quantity is very limited. And this year it's been very difficult to find a good version or a good batch of the Darjeeling. And the flavor, as you can taste, is rather floral, grassy, like spring, almost asparagus.
It is very springy.
Yeah, it is, right?
And lots of young, fresh spring flowers.
Exactly. I had this beautiful golden color to it as well. So this apparently is the both the king's and the queen's, the late queen's favorite tea.
Tipple.
Tipple.
Their tipple.
What's that?
Their favorite
drink. Okay.
But doesn't he have milk? Doesn't he have a little milk in his with a dash of honey, or is that?
I read that as well. And one of the other teas that he enjoyed was Earl Grey. And I would hope that the milk and honey goes into the Earl Grey and not into this. I would hope, because this would just get destroyed with milk and honey, I would say. So let's hope that his that he respects the tea enough not to drink it with milk.
Do you think he would drink this in the morning or in the afternoon?
So apparently he drinks it both morning and afternoon. Yeah, and the Queen did as well. But like I said, this could all be made up. Who knows? Yeah,
because I also heard that he drinks this for lunch because he doesn't have lunch. He doesn't eat lunch.
Okay.
So he never does. Wants to keep his beautiful figure, and so he drinks tea.
Okay.
He drinks, especially apparently, to give him a feeling of being full and satisfied. I suppose it's very satisfying.
I feel that you have more inside information than
No, I don't. No.
Well, anyway, welcome again. So exciting to have you. Both of you are, or April at least, both are long-term customers here at the Tea Center. And April, you knew my father. Sebastian, you also met him a few times. Yeah. It's so fun to be able to invite both of you here, because Sebastian, you and I, we've had ideas to work together as well. You had an era where you were working with kombucha as well, and April, you've just been an avid tea drinker. Yeah,
well, he
you've taken over the throne.
Shop.
Yeah. even before coming here, you were just buying tea.
I just spent 2,500 kroner.
We thank you. Me and my staff thank you.
I thank you.
And your father's sitting up there going,
well, really good.
So the purpose was to the purpose of this podcast, of course, as you know, is to meet people and hear their experiences. But now that we have a Brit with us of one generation, and we have Sebastian here, the tea drinker of another generation, I would love to hear your experiences and your relationship to tea. Let's start with you, April. What's your relationship to tea nowadays, and how were you brought up with tea? Like, what's the history there?
What's the history? Well, I suppose it was like most Brits. Well, perhaps not, but my mother used to bring us a cup of tea in bed in the morning, and this was actually a black tea, Darjeeling with milk, and she used to come, and we used to get that every morning before we got up.
Wow.
That kind. I mean, you don't think about it. You think everybody has tea brought by their mother, but they don't.
They really don't.
But they don't. And so I suppose
Did you repeat history with?
Sometimes. He probably doesn't remember either. But so I grew up with that, and I think when I became, aware, I suppose 17-ish, we mature later in England. so I sort of we used to drink tea at home, and you didn't meet friends and go out and have tea. There wasn't the opportunity. You were at school, and so it wasn't really until you started a Saturday job, and then you got a little bit of extra cash, and then you met your friends, and then you had tea.
Okay, so it would be something that you would go out to do.
You would go out to do. It'd be something very special. We used to meet before we started our Saturday jobs. And one of the girls, Deirdre, she used to bring cigarettes and used to sit there and I thought, oh gosh, she looks so elegant. Oh my goodness, I have to learn how to smoke. It looks great with the tea, you know. So it was that sort of thing. And so I didn't really discover any other kind of teas and until much later when I was at university and in Bath. And Bath is in Avon in Somerset and near Devon. So they have another kind of tea culture there. So then I got to know about Earl Grey and all these other kind of interesting teas because you went out, it was a social event. you went out, you met your friends, and you went to Sally Lunn's in Bath, and you ordered a Sally Lunn or half a Sally Lunn and a cup of tea, and it became a way of meeting your friends, or being together, or sharing something and sharing the moment. And you used to, a bit like Deirdre with her cigarettes.
But was it pretentious a bit?
No, we were only students.
But so having tea in that way wouldn't be considered pretentious, or you wouldn't have it at the finest bars or the finest places.
No, we were just students. I mean, you were lucky. You had to save up to buy this. It was not something that was available at the time. You saved up and you spent your student money on having a nice cup of tea in a china cup and enjoying it with this lovely Sally Lunn it's a bit like a scone. And so it was very much a students meeting, enjoying, being together, talking about all the boys at the university and some college work and so on. And it was very much this coming together. So the tea brought us together. It was a very social and fun thing to do. So we never really discussed, this is lovely Earl Grey or it's a lovely Darjeeling. It was just, you just enjoyed it, and it was very much cheaper to get a pot of tea than it was to buy a separate sort of tea. So you bought a whole pot and you shared it. So it was a lovely, lovely sort of interesting time.
And when do you think it became? Because do you feel going back to England now, that's not there anymore? The whole...
I think that there's a lot of coffee drinking, as there is here in Sweden. Coffee is much more available. It's much quicker. You can just pop in and get a coffee. You can take it with you. It's not something in the same way. I wouldn't sort of sit down or let's have a nice cup of tea together. Or has another role. You want a quick stimulant. You want to grab something fast. I think tea is very slow.
Because my father always had my father had a saying where he would say that you can drink a cup of coffee standing, but not tea. Would you say that would you just buy a Starbucks mug with tea and drink it? I mean, even a younger generation today, would that be something that you would experience in England, or would tea?
I think you have to ask Sebastian, but I have never in my whole life, I would never even dream for 1 second of having a mug in a paper. I wouldn't even have it in the paper mug. I mean, tea doesn't come into its own in a paper mug. You can't drink it in a paper. And I know it sounds a bit funny, but you wouldn't even drink it in a glass like this. I mean, not if you want to get the full flavor.
No.
And I even have a glass teapot. So I'm very fussy about seeing the color. It should be the whole experience of the color and the taste and the floral notes and all of that. And you can't do that with a mug of tea from Starbucks. It's not really quite the same.
So Sebastian, would you say that you developed this interest in tea from your mother, or is this something that came much later in life? Or?
It's a good question. I remember vividly growing up that my mother made tea every day, all the time. And I partook, I drank a lot of tea. But then it wasn't until I was about 18, I remember a friend of mine at music school, we met at my place, put on jazz music, drank the souchong, the
Lapsang
souchong, the smoked tea, and
works perfectly with jazz.
Yeah. And we also bought lots of different cheeses, and then we would just sit and listen to music, drink tea, and it was wonderful. That's my first love affair with tea.
And that was something that you decided yourself, because that seems very grown up for an 18-year-old to have cheeses and Lapsang souchong.
Of course, I found the tea here. So I was perusing your shop, and then I found that tea, and I kind of fell in love with that. Yeah, it really suited me for some reason at that time. And I introduced it to my friend, and we every week, once a week, we would do that.
Wow. Yeah. I wish I knew you at that time, so I could partake in that as well. So how would you say that your relationship with tea has developed since then?
Okay, so and then I think growing up, I think as you do in a fast society, I think I more and more gravitated towards coffee because that's what's prevalent, that's what everyone's doing, and that's what's around you when you're at work and so forth. Also, the quality of tea is subpar if you at a workplace or anywhere really. There's only post tea. I don't know, call
tea
it
bags.
Tea bags, yeah.
And it's not so inspiring. So you tend to go for what everyone else does. But then just a few years ago, because I periodically buy tea and I'll enjoy a bag, and then when it's empty I forget about it. And then I don't live in Stockholm, so it has to be it's a journey to come up here. But a few years ago, I actually decided I'm going to go onto the internet because I'm sure that the Tea Center has a web page by now. So we started to order tea, me and my girlfriend, and we completely switched away from coffee and drink only tea. And we just noticed such a qualitative lift in our lives from drinking tea.
Okay.
It just changed. It changed how we live, I think, in a way.
And was it easy to make that switch and make that adjustment?
It was, because when you have that kind of revelation, then when you have that kind of experience where you drink a tea and it's like it flowers within you, and you just change and you calm down and you land, and then that becomes something that you become addicted to. And now every morning, my girlfriend, she comes in with a cup of tea.
I spoke to her secretly, and I said,
exactly. That was under your influence.
Don't they always say that you look for someone like your mother, and
when
you're looking for a partner?
Yeah, that's what I asked her. Are you like my mother?
Are you like my mother?
Are you into tea?
No, but that's exactly what the experience that we want to evoke in our customers as well. That the whole point there about not being able to drink a cup of tea standing is that to be able to appreciate tea, I would say you need to be present. Presence is key. And because if you are not present, if you're in a rush, and if you're drinking at a paper mug, or if you're whatever it may be, and you're stressed and you think about a lot of different things, and you have this meeting, and it pretty much, or at least teas similar to this, would just taste like warm water. You wouldn't be able to taste the intricate nuances in the tea itself, because some of these nuances and some of these flavor profiles are somewhere at the back. You really need to concentrate and think and really identify them. Whereas coffee, you get that kick pretty quickly. There's a lot of different coffees that I would say are in the same way. You need to be present when you're drinking it, because. But that's a good point that you're making. That it's almost a revelation when you start drinking tea and you really put in the time and the effort to actually be present, and everything else just is not important at that moment. And that's one of the things I think is really important nowadays, when we're so connected and we're always so stimulated, and we get these dopamine kicks everywhere. That we need to be present and just calm down and breathe.
Yeah, because it is very meditative, very yogic. I mean, in the yoga world, it's. I mean, you don't even breathe the word coffee; it's tea. And
we don't breathe the word coffee here either.
No, we don't. No, I thought so. And if I want to know, all of your new teas, I just go to Sebastian's house and I look in his cupboard, because it's like, I thought I had a lot of tea in my cupboard. But so your latest one that you love is the orange oolong. You like this? Is really keen on that.
It's really hard to brew, but I love it.
So you're moved on towards oolong teas.
Oh, I've moved on to be more open to all teas. I mean, me and my girlfriend love all teas. There's not a tea that I've tried that I haven't liked. Maybe she doesn't like smoked teas, but every tea I try has something that evokes something in me and kind of links to like, oh, this is when I would like to drink this tea.
Fantastic.
Like in the evening or alone at night, or so there's a tea for every occasion.
So April, what would you say is unique about drinking tea in Britain?
In Britain, I think one of the most important things is this coming together, the sort of more psychological aspects of being together, of sharing and caring, And I mean, if there's ever a crisis, if somebody's had a terrible shock or anything like that, the first thing you say is, I'll make a cup of tea. And it's your way of also showing a level of caring, and also it gives you the time and the space to sit down with that person, with those people, and create an atmosphere and a time where you can be together and discuss, or just be together and not say anything. You don't need to say anything if you have a cup of tea.
No.
And it's very much that it has that aspect, which is really, really, really important, perhaps more important than most things. Have a cup of tea.
I think King Charles has probably had a few crises during his lifetime, right? Maybe, but seriously, the last being maybe the death of the Queen, all this media around Harry and Meghan Markle, and I mean, there's been a lot of controversy around that.
He doesn't have it easy, and I mean, a lot of us are. I mean, true monarchists. I mean, we are, and when the Queen died, although she was extremely old and had lived a very rich life, he was still terribly saddened, and it's the disappearance of a whole era. It's a whole era, and I mean, she's always been queen ever since I've been alive. And I mean, like many of us, I have my hairband as well, but I've still got my band for her.
Okay.
This is to
The morning band.
a morning band
Okay.
for the Queen. And when Prince Charles becomes king, or he's king, when he becomes coronated, then I'll clip it off. So
Wow.
so
Is that something that? Where did you come with that idea, or where does that come from?
often when people die, you wear a band around your arm as a respect, and so people can see you're mourning. But I mean, I'm not really mourning. I'm just acknowledging and being respectful and saying I cared, and this is a very important part of our culture. And I like the monarchy and tea and being Britain and British and humour and bringing your kids up with Lord of the Rings and Roald Dahl. And I mean, it's really important to get this culture. It really is.
Segueing to Prince Charles, you actually met him.
Oh, well,
Right?
Yes, he came to the British Embassy in Stockholm. And if you'd done something good, sort of for Britain, you were invited. So I was invited, and that they said that we'd be divided into 2 rooms. And I thought, oh, cool, which room am I going to be in? And they said, well, you can be in Camilla's room, and then that. And I was thinking, oh my God, how can I get into Charles's room? So it was very naughty. I changed rooms, which you weren't supposed to do. And then when Charles came along, when I was younger, he did this fantastic show for radio with all of the British comedians, and it was called The Goon Show. Okay. And I mean, he was so unprincely. He was so normal. He was so sort of gorgeous. And so when he came and we had to shake hands to say something important, I thought I could only think about The Goon Show. So I said to him, well, Prince Charles, because he was only Prince then.
At the time, yeah.
And I said, I think that you should make a remake of The Goon Show. And he laughed and said, well, yeah, that's a good idea. I don't think, he said, but if they've all died, so there's no one left.
This Prince thing isn't going anywhere. You should probably do comedy.
Yes, do comedy. Yeah. No, so it's a big thing, the coronation coming up, and in a way, it's a pity that. I mean, I know you probably don't feel quite as strongly, but it would be quite nice to be there. Although
it's on the 6th, right?
Yeah,
6th.
The 6th.
The coronation is on the 6th, and then I think there's a parade on the 8th. as well.
I
I
don't
think it's the
know.
whole weekend, I think.
But we're meeting at my place. I have a big lawn, so we're getting some Sebastian and Anna together, and some Brit friends and some other people, and we're going to play croquet and looking for cricket bats.
And possibly drink some tea.
And we're going to drink
Yes,
tea
of course.
and strawberries and clotted cream. So I've got to make the clotted cream, so doing all of that. So that will be, so we're going to have BBC World News on, and then sort of watch that, and then go outside and play croquet. And we're getting all dressed up and everything.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Really lovely. And we're going to absolutely drink his tea.
Yes, you definitely need to drink the tea that King Charles drinks. Yeah. Sebastian, you had a question for me, I remember.
Yes. I was wondering, what is your favorite tea memory?
My favorite tea memory is, well...
Or one of them.
Exactly. I have many. But besides... Oh, which one do I choose now? I can tell you two of them, relatively short. The first one being when I was my coronation in coming to the company and taking over, was when my father had a silver spoon, which was specific for him. It's his spoon. It says his name, and that's the teaspoon that he always tasted teas with, and created his teas with. And when I was old enough, and when I had gone through the passages of becoming a tea taster, I was presented with I was given a silver teaspoon of my own with my name on it. So that's what I use. But his spoon still hangs here, and nobody's allowed to use it.
I have so many fond memories together, because I was saying when we came in, the wall there is painted green, and and we used to discuss this because, as Gian calls it,
Jaguar green.
Jaguar green, and it's what we call British racing green.
British racing. Well, Jaguar is a British brand, so I mean,
absolutely,
or used to be.
It's
so
for sure the right thing.
So that would be one of my fondest memories, and the other one would be my first time in Japan, where I met when I actually lived with our suppliers, and they're like a second family to me. And the first time I arrived in Japan, I was 18 years old. I took the speed train from Tokyo to this small town called Kakegawa. I was picked up by the staff of the company and taken to the president or the owner's house. And in that house, they had a tea room. And the president and his wife were in this tea room, and it was silent. Everybody was silent. I just replicated what they were doing. They sat down, I sat down. Everybody was quiet, I was quiet, and then she started this tea ceremony, a matcha tea ceremony.
Yeah.
And I was just drawn in, and everybody was silent, and I was drawn into this experience. And just hours ago, or just an hour before, 2 hours ago, I was in a busy subway or busy train station with a lot of people. It's Tokyo, and and just sitting there and watching her and being awed by this experience. And Otsuka-san, family name is Otsuka. She doesn't speak English, but she was able to muster up. After doing the tea ceremony, she came to me and she held the matcha bowl in front of me, and she said, "Now I have you." And I just burst out in tears almost. Trying to be professional, it's my first time meeting them, but and even now I can get teared up by it, because it was just such a moment where she said that now you are a part of the tea experience, and now you are a part of this culture. Now you're just So
wow.
that would be
what a memory.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much. What do you think that hearing April's experience about with tea, where do you think that tea comes in, or what is the relevance of tea today for because you and I are pretty much the same age. Where would you think that? I mean, I'm a bad example because I'm working with tea, but where would you think that? What is the perception that people have of tea today? Would you say?
It's a hard question. I think that I think that there's a lack of understanding of what the true potential of tea is and what tea really is in terms of the craftsmanship. That part I think is missed, because if you go to a cafe, there's usually just tea bags, and then when I try to introduce new friends to tea, which I always do when they come to my house, and I brew tea, and then they're like, oh, but I don't like I don't like black tea, or I don't like green tea, and I'm like, yeah, but you probably never had green tea or black tea. You've had the worst version of it, and probably brewed wrong as well. So let's just restart and do that. And also, I was at a really good restaurant in Stockholm a few weeks ago. It was a good Asian restaurant, will not be named. It was very good. And then I saw that they had a loose tea on the menu from Indonesia. I'd never heard of it. Yeah, nice. So I was really surprised, and I was like, "That's what I'm gonna drink," because I was driving a car. So I said, "That's what I'm gonna have with my whole menu." And it was really great.
It was a set menu.
Yeah, it was. Okay. It was great. But they served the tea a bit wrong, because they just served it in a big glass, almost like a decanter thing, and then they had the tea leaves just loose in there, and it just became. So I had to drink it like it was a whole liter, and I had to drink it really fast because
it was brewing.
Yeah, it was kept brewing, so at the end it was just a bitter mess. But even there, I felt like I was happy to see that. But even in this kind of culinary environment, there was still not this. I wanted to tell them like, hey guys, this is my idea. Call Gihan.
No, because I've noticed that in general, the tea culture in the UK has not been very good for a very long time.
I'd agree. We were discussing it and saying, we asked an English friend of mine as well, how we should just come back. How do you experience now the tea culture in Britain? And it doesn't seem to be a tea culture anymore. No. It's just tea bags, and everybody knows the temperature you're supposed to have, but people don't go out of their way to a tea shop to buy. No. And there aren't often tea shops anymore. You can go like the tea centre.
There are some that have like come up now for the past say 5 or 10 years. Some very novice tea companies that are doing a fantastic job in promoting quality loose leaf teas, but they're still relatively small. And I mean, the Twinings and Lipton and so on, they're still, of course, very big on the market. But I have confidence, or I hope that can change, because I think we all have some sort of relationship to, or some sort of impression of British tea or afternoon tea and high tea.
Well, there is that. There is the culture of afternoon tea, but you've got to go to the Ritz or the Dorchester, or you've got to go to Harrods or Fortnum & Mason, and it's an event. Yeah. And it's very expensive. Yeah. And so that does exist, and I mean, I'm like Sebastian and I, we're ambassadors for tea because we love tea. And if I do an afternoon tea with my friends, I mean, then I'll make 2 or 3 teas in 2 or 3 pots and have flames underneath so they keep warm. And they kind of, wow, this is real afternoon tea, and they're very happy. But I mean, the reason I had a tea relationship with your father was because I came in one day here and I bought several packets of Earl Grey Special because they're very beautiful as well. And he said, why do you want 10 packets of tea? And I said, well, I'm going to take them to England as presents. And he was like, what? Are you taking my tea to England? This is like taking coals to Newcastle. I said, well, yes. I said, it's so beautiful, and I don't know where you can buy this outside of London. So that's how our friendship started. He
Okay.
thought it was amazing that a Brit would come in here and buy tea and take it.
It is amazing. I mean, we noticed that through our website as well, that people from all over the world are ordering tea from Sweden, from us.
It can be my fault.
That might be your fault.
I'm on a place called Reddit a lot, and I've been promoting. So every time there's a tea post or something related to tea, I'm just like, well, I don't think you've tried the best.
We need to speak royalties then.
Oh yeah. We're gonna take that.
No, but it's amazing because I mean, one of our largest, speaking about tea being exported from Sweden, one of the largest customer markets we have outside of Sweden is Japan, where we export about 13 tons of Söderblandning every year.
Wow.
And that's amazing for us. That's
crazy.
That is crazy. It is crazy, and it's just grow, and that's through a distributor and through our agents. We've not even opened our website for the Japanese market yet because out of respect. But as soon as we do, I think that there's going to be an influx in that as well.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. Just to touch upon the British or like UK and tea and so on, what do you think, or even in Sweden, what do you think, Sebastian, that we as tea companies and tea enthusiasts need to do to evoke people to start drinking proper teas? Not tea in general, but
real tea.
Real tea, yeah.
Real tea. I used to work a lot with drinks. I had a brewery earlier, and we were talking today, me and April here, about like how almost every kind of artisanal product has had a renaissance or like an awakening, like a sourdough bread or small scale brewing, microbrewing and stuff like that. And I think it's only natural that tea should really soon
follow.
Should follow, because it's such a rich culture. It's already there.
So how would you do that as a consumer? How would you like to be presented with tea?
That's a great question. I mean, as we were touching upon with in restaurants, I think that might be the place to start, because if restaurants and cafes get educated and can serve tea correctly, people will learn to enjoy tea the right way, and that I think would kickstart people into properly drinking tea. Because if you don't educate them, like exactly. when I had my brewery, one of the big things we did was that we had what we did was we made craft beers for specific restaurants, and we helped them make a brand and make a specific beer, and then in conjunction we would invite their staff to come and be part of the brewing process, to learn the terminology, to understand the ingredients, so that when they meet their customers in their restaurant, they can actually tell them, I was there, this is how it's made, these are the ingredients.
It's the storytelling.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the focal points, the storytelling as well. But I find it a mystery, because tea has such a rich culture. There's so much good tea. There's so many different things to try, and it's almost criminal that it hasn't been been spread more. And that's one of my questions for you is like, how do you think tea in Sweden, like why hasn't it caught on in Sweden? What are your thoughts in the same ways?
Well, one of the reasons would be I think that we were rather, when my father started this company in 1978, we were rather alone on the market in being a company that merely or only works with tea. There was a lot of tea and coffee companies, but which primarily worked with tea. We were a few, but not a very few. And I think, like you say, it's the accessibility of coffee at the workplace or even at home, and having espresso machines, and like just having the accessibility of making it easy to get a cup of coffee. That would be a very big reason, I think. But we've noticed an increase yearly in customers and in people getting more interested in teas because people are traveling more to Asia. They've tried things over there. They've been they've visited a tea house and they've experienced something, and they want to be able to replicate that at home, or at least have some sort of remembrance about it. So there is an interest, and I think definitely with the health trend as well. Tea is you were talking about yoga, and I think that works very well together, better than coffee. But yeah, our goal is to increase that by these podcasts and our website, and try to evoke people to try tea in a new and innovative way. I think that people are having tea served only in teacups is probably not the only way to go today. We need to be able to present it as a beverage to drink while you're eating, or even to infuse food with it, or whatever it would be. So that's what I think that we need to do, and something that we're working very hard on. But yes, on that topic.
I was going to say, I think the gate is opening. I'm thinking, I mean, the various companies like the Puka company, that they're making herbal teas, so they're not really, they're infusions.
Exactly.
Great packaging. So
Great
that
packaging.
loads of girls I know buy them because they want the pink one because it's for love, and and you buy an experience.
Exactly.
You buy instead of buying a Darjeeling or an Earl Grey or St. John's or smoked tea, you buy calmness or love or.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's you're right there. I think that the tea companies such as we as well, we fall under this. That we've been maybe a little bit too traditional, and that we've probably not made it as appealing to a younger clientele. And there's ways of doing that which I think can still encompass the tradition behind it, but still doing it in a modern way.
In a modern way.
Yeah.
I'm sure the gate's open.
Yeah.
Because people are, okay, we've been there, done that. Now we want the sourdough. You know,
Exactly.
We want the next step. And as you said, people love this storytelling bit. You know, you have people over and you say, well, you know, this comes from there, and that was born there, and that comes from that mountain on the south slope of, I mean, as you do with wine.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I want to sit and continue talking with you even after the podcast, but on that note, we have to end. It was lovely having both of you.
I just want to say one thing
very
seriously, because I'm not a very good representative for a Brit, actually, I must confess. Because the last time I went to London, you know, you're chatting with the taxi driver on the way in for quite some time. And then when we got to London, and I was paying him, he said, you know, love, you speak such good English. Where do you come from? So I'm not really a true Brit anymore.
You lost it somewhere along the way. Somewhere along the way. Anyway, thank you so much for coming and for enriching us with your stories and your experiences. It's really, really, really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gian.
Thank you.
Pleasure.